Hello, Reborners. My name is Karen, and this is Making Reborn Dolls with Karen. We're back with Logan. He looks like this now. He's looking real good. His paint looks super smooth and good. His lips look good. I'm about to remove the sponge from his fingers to see if it helped any. I didn't remove it yet. I wanted to remove it so y'all could see. I'm just going to pull it out, and look at that. His fingers are now staying up. It's no longer touching his thumb. It's up. And that's what we wanted. There's a little tiny bit of sponge stuck to his finger, but I'm going to scratch it off. I'm pretty sure I can just scratch it off with a toothpick or something. Gently scratching. Of course, we don't want to scratch off the paint. Yeah, it's coming right off. This takes a few little scrapes and it's just gone. And look at that, it's standing up now. No longer touching his thumb. This finger was all the way down touching his thumb. So that looks more natural and way, way better to me. So when we bake him his last time, we're going to put it back in there because I don't want the chance that it's going to go back down. It could, it may not, but I just don't want the chance. I don't want to have to then rebake him to try to get it back up again. That looks super, super better to me. So yeah, we're going to put it back in there. See, little things like that, they're little tricks that you have to just learn. I just sort of figured it out on my own that you can do things like that. Sometimes you, oh man, got paint or something on my shirt. Sometimes you can use like a toothpick. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe, I try to use something soft like this. I don't want to use something hard like the end of a paintbrush or something. I don't know, I just don't know why, I just don't. But I think these fingers could use a little lifting too, but I'm not going to. I think they're supposed to look like that. The only way you can know for sure is to look at the Bear kit. And on the website, when you look up the doll, they show you the Bear kit. They'll show you the arms, the legs, the head, and you can see what the kit would really look like. Because, you know, different people's renditions of the doll can change the way the doll looks. And so you're looking at one person's artistic view of a doll and you're going, oh, that's a real cute doll, and then you get it and it's cartoony looking, or the other way around. It looks sort of cartoony looking the way they painted it, but when you get the kit, you can actually make it into a cute baby. So it's important to go back and look at the Bear kit. It's gives you a realistic view of what the face is going really looks like with no paint on it. And you can also see the configuration of the hands and the feet and stuff and how they're supposed to look versus how they might look after you've baked them a few times because they sort of warped a little. But see, warp conditions can be taken care of. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's why we stuff the head, to keep that from happening. The head would be totally misshapen by now had we not stuffed it. But anyway, we're going to move on. That's the concentrated paint. I don't want to get a hold of that one day and try to paint with it. I have a little tub of the, we're going to be using this. It's nail tip that I mixed up myself. It says Flesh 05 on it, but this was an empty bottle. I really need to pull this sticker off. I don't want to get it confused with the actual Flesh 05. Not that you would. Once you open it, you're going to go, oh, that's not Flesh 05 after all, you know. Because, I mean, it's white, see? Whitish, ivory colored kind of. It's not really white. But I mixed it up in that little jar to preserve it. I was using a little bottle cap like this, but you can't cover that. And so I was sticking it in a Ziploc bag, and little by little it starts to just get too little bit in there. And so I still have one in here that has, well, that's not the bag. It's this one. I still have one in here that has my scratch stuff in it. And when it runs out, I'm going to mix it in a little jar like this as well. And most of these little jars have a kind of rough top, and you can write on them with a magic marker. Like I could write nail tip on this. But the bigger bottles, some of the bottles have smooth tops, and you can't write on them. It just rubs right off. But this one has a kind of rough top. So you could take a Sharpie or something and write what color you have on there. But make sure you're not touching it until it's completely dry, because you'll get black on your hands, and then when you touch your doll, you'll get it on your doll, and it will not come off your doll. I've never found a way to get it off. But anyway, we're going to get started on him. And we are going to be giving him a baby scratch so you can see how to do it. It's not hard. It's very, very easy, actually, to put a baby scratch on your doll. And okay, so we're going to get started with our last color of paint. And this is that color I was trying to mix in that other video. Well, I did mix it, but I mean, it was very difficult. You saw how difficult it was. I'm just no good at mixing paint. I don't do it as a rule. And so that's why I was excited about this paint that I reconstituted from the Genesis color. It's a perfect color. And but I'm going to be using this one from Gemini that I mixed a while back. I now understand the Gemini a little bit better than I did when I first started using Gemini. And so it's not as important to be able to use this old Genesis as it used to be. Anyway, I'm going to get a brush. I have 3 things of brushes here, so I don't even know which one to pick. Just get one. And this is a dry-ish brush. It's not completely dry. We're going to get our red sponges. They're very, very red. I have a lot of them because red is a very, very pigmented color. Much more pigmented than some of the other colors. So I pounce and pounce and pounce and pounce on them. Excuse my shirt. I got paint on it the other day. And, well, even after washing, it doesn't come out. So, anyway, here we go. We're going to do them in this order. I'm trying to get the dirtiest sponges first and the cleanest one at the end. They're dry, so it's right now in this one coat of paint on this doll, it's not going to make that much difference, but I still like to use them in that order. It keeps your cleaner sponges a little bit cleaner. I think I'm going to use one of them to make a new one of these. My garbage can's getting so full back there. I'm going to tear the top off of this one, and we're going to use it for putting the paint on, which means I'm going to get out another clean one for pouncing the doll. This color has to be pounced a little extra because, like I said, it's highly pigmented. So I may or may not be using all of these sponges to pounce with. So we'll see. And there's even more of them in here. See, I have so many because after they get wet, they're just very highly colored. And the color is just, I don't know how to describe it. It's very deep. I don't know any other, I don't know how to describe it really. And we need to tone it down a little with our sponges. Spread it and smooth it and make it look good. Okay, we got a good bit on here. We don't want a lot to be in our brush. It will run on the doll. And this highly pigmented paint could stain the doll and keep it from looking good. So we are going to paint him now with this color, and we're going to do it the same way we always do it. You can notice his eyebrows are much less scary and ugly looking. They've toned down a lot, and they will continue to tone down as long as you're putting paint on it. But I just want very light eyebrows. I don't want those big, heavy, ugly, scary ones. I know a lot of people make them because they think it's realism, but I do want a realistic looking doll. Don't get me wrong, I want that. But over that, I want a pretty doll. I want a doll that people go, "Ooh, look at that doll. I like it so much." Instead of, "Oh, doesn't that look really real? It has a big old wart on its face." You know, I'm not saying everybody puts warts on their face for realism, but you know what I mean. Too much realism is not a good thing in a doll. We need to get a grip on what we're making here. We're not making a baby. We are making a doll. And it needs to look good. Yes, we do want it to look realistic, but there's a point, I think, that you don't need to go past. It's real enough, is what I'm saying. And you're just making it super complicated, super, super difficult, and kind of freaky looking if it has too much realism. Like I said, this is a highly pigmented color, so we're going to be pouncing him a lot. They claim all their paints are highly pigmented, but this is the most highly pigmented I've ever seen. This red is super pigmented. And I don't mean there's a lot of paint in the water. I mean the paint color itself just has a lot of pigment in it. Plus we put 3 colors in it. We put the quinacridone or whatever that color is, crimson #1, and then we put the ethnic lip nail and blush, and then we put some blue. And so it's got 3 colors of paint in it. But it also has thinning medium and Exodus oil in it. And then, of course, the paint thinner to make it the watery consistency that we want. It has to be sort of thin. Now, if you're making a wash, if you want a wash, you're going to make it even thinner than this. It's going to be super pale and almost like a watercolor. If you ever seen watercolors, liquidy watercolors. All the watercolors I've ever seen was when I was a little kid. I've never really used watercolor ever since I was a little kid. But when you're in kindergarten or first grade or something like that, you have these little paint palettes that your mother bought at like Walmart or wherever she got your school supplies at. When I was a kid, there was no Walmart. Walmart didn't come out till later. But it kind of looked like a little eyeshadow case with those little powdery eyeshadows in it, except it was paint. And it was very, very super runny. You had to wet your brush and rub it on that paint, and then you'd get this watery color. And it was very, very light. And when you'd put it on the paper, it wouldn't even hardly show up at all. See, this one won't hardly take any off, but anything that comes off when you're dabbing your doll like this actually needs to come off. Very, very little comes off. But eventually it'll get dirty like this, and then dirty like this, and then dirty like that. And then we'll be throwing them out. Okay, that's his head. It looks really good. We're going to put one more coat on his lips. They're okay. We could leave them like that. They're actually a good color. I'm going to hold them closer to the screen. But they just look a little bit pale to me. And I just want them a little tiny deeper in color. It's going to be a thin layer. But we won't be putting any on his... I need to check that before I say that. That one looks good. I was going to say we weren't going to be putting any on his nails because we're going to tip them. I see one nail, and it's the pinky toe of that one foot that looks like it needs more on it. I might dab a little on there and then give it a second to dry before I put the tip on, because we're going to tip his nails. And we're going to do it right after we get finished putting this color on. We're going to repaint his lips and tip his nails. And then he'll be ready to go back into the oven again. And when we come back, we'll be setting his magnet. And we won't do his hair online. I'll be putting his eyes in. And we'll go over my little pearl doll that I cut her face off so you could see how eyes go in. We'll be going over that so you can understand eye placement. And then we'll do his glue on his lips and nails, and I'll explain all that. And then after that, we'll just be finished making him. We won't put him together. It's very simple to put a doll together. You just take a body, you put some stuff down in the bottom so that the bottom part of the body is, shaped. And then you just take your bag of glass. I showed you my bags of glass, I think. And then you put one of those in there, and then you finish filling it up with polyfill. And then you just put the arms and legs on. It's very simple and self-explanatory. And I don't usually do that online. It's very boring, and people do not like to see it. Those videos don't get any views hardly because it's just too boring. Everybody knows how to put a body on. It's very, very simple. You just put the arms in the armhole and the legs in the leg hole and tighten up the zip ties. Your doll is considered to be born. If you're going to fill out I don't fill out the birth certificates, the COAs, they're also called, they say birth certificate on them, but they're COAs. But Bountiful Babies have a place where you can fill them out. I don't know that they all do. I don't really get dolls from other companies. I got a few at times in the past, but I just don't remember. I know some of their COAs just look like a photograph of the baby. I even threw them away sometimes because I thought that's what they were. Okay, they photographed the doll. Thanks a lot. Poof, right in the garbage. Then I found out later, well, that was the COA. Okay. But Bountiful Babies look more like a little baby's birth certificate. And they have a little space for you to fill out how much they weigh, how long they are. And the person who gets the doll can fill out the name they want to give their doll. It'll say Logan Awake at the top. But then there'll be a nursery name. It's like, this is the name I'm giving him, and it's Ronald or whatever you want. And so yeah, that will, you'd have to fill that out. There's also a place on there to fill out what time they were born. And they're considered to be born when you cut the zip tie on the back of the neck. Or I think in the real borns, it's on the side of the neck. The full bodies. That touched that doll when it fell. So I have to pounce that a little more. Okay. But I don't fill it out. I just let the person who gets the doll fill it out if they want to. Too much on there. It's just, I don't do it. And as a matter of fact, over the years, all the dolls that I've given away and donated and all that, I didn't even bother to give them the birth certificates. I didn't think anybody would ever want them. It used to be no thing. Nobody wanted them. And I had piles of them. I'm talking about a stack about this high from the table. Literally, that many birth certificates. And I gave a bunch to nieces and nephews for their dolls so they could pretend like their doll had a birth certificate. Just throwing them out, everything. Then I decided, wonder if I can do anything with these. And I got to thinking, on those seconds dolls, they don't give a birth certificate. And a seconds doll is just a doll that isn't completely perfect. Usually, you can't even tell anything is different about that doll. Nothing at all. You look at it and you go, if it's a second, I can't see it. And it just looks normal and perfect. And it reborns just fine. It looks perfectly good when you're finished. There's nothing wrong with it. But they don't get a COA because they're perfect dolls. And as a matter of fact, when they're having those limited editions, they're numbered. They're only going to have, let's say, 1,000 of them altogether. Well, the seconds don't count. So there might be 2,000 of them. We'd hope that half of their dolls are not seconds. But, over the years of people ordering them, most dolls do not sell out quickly. Only if they're on a really, really, really cheap sale. And so it might take them years to sell 1,000 dolls. So over those years of making the dolls and stuff, they're going to have some seconds. So they sell them too at a reduced price. And on top of that, they don't get a COA. And they're not counted in the production of their 1,000 either. So there could be more than 1,000 out there, but a portion of them won't have any COAs. As a matter of fact, I have right now in my possession about 3 Charlotte dolls, and they're numbered with certificates of authenticity, and one of them doesn't have one, and I'm keeping that one because, well, I don't need a certificate, And I made one for me to keep, and I said, I'll just keep the one that doesn't have a certificate. That way everybody else gets one, that buys her. And I think she's a pretty baby. She's the first doll I ever owned. When I first started collecting dolls, I was living alone, and I was very lonely. And I don't know, I was just scrolling through some YouTube videos, that goes from whatever you looked up, I don't remember. It can even be a cake mix recipe, a cake recipe or something. And then it'll go to other recipes, and then it'll go to other things related to those things. And pretty soon it's moved from recipes for cakes to something that has nothing at all to do with cooking. Maybe it'll go to cookware next, and then maybe it'll go to some other household items, and then it'll go to something else. And then pretty soon you're on some totally different subject that has nothing whatsoever to do with the one you just looked up. And I don't remember what I was looking at, but I happened to come across a box opening. Box opening? What the heck is that? And so I started watching it, and it was a lady opening up her reborn doll. And she had all these cute little gifts, all these, the cute little baby. And the way they opened it up, it was like they started at the toes, and they only opened up the feet first, and they admired the feet. And, it was just so cute. And I was so lonely, and I thought, you know what? I'd like to have one of them dolls. So I went online. Well, okay, I'm going to let that roll off and hit every doll part I paint, I guess. So I looked up online, reborn dolls, and they came up, and I just thought they were so cute. So I scrolled down through a bunch of the Reborn dolls to see, wow, they're expensive. That's what I was thinking. And they weren't even all that expensive back then. I found one for like, I don't remember. I think it was 80 something dollars. And it was Precious Gift. She's a artist kit. But I liked her and I thought she was cute. And I ordered her, but she didn't come right away because the people who had her were on vacation. And they tell you on the site, this person is away. If you order this doll, there will be a delay in getting it. Please be warned ahead of time or something that it may not be mailed for a certain amount of days or something. Yeah, okay, I wasn't in a hurry. So, and in the meantime, I found this other doll, and it was Charlotte. And at the time, she was not even, she was still in production. And so she wasn't rare or anything like that. And I ordered her. And she came right away real fast. And so she was the first doll I got. But all I could see was boy on her. She was dressed like a girl, but I changed her clothes to boy clothes. And I named her Eli. And I still have that doll to this day. It had rooted hair, but it was horrible. The rooted hair was terribly, terribly like straw. It was like it was, I mean, the woman was right up front about it being a used doll. And so, you know, I wasn't horribly upset over it, but I didn't like the hair. It was red, and I did like that. I have redheaded children, and my grandkids are redheaded, so redheaded was nice. I thought it was nice. And but over time, the hair just became more and more brittle. I had no idea you were supposed to condition it or any of that stuff. So anyway, I had the hair taken out, and I penciled hair on her head. And to this day, I still have that doll, and it's my, it has sentimental value, I guess you'd call it, to me. I didn't pay that much for her. I paid like $199 for her, which is cheap for a Reborn doll if you're getting a nice one. And she was nice. I thought she was nice, and I don't know. But the point I was trying to make is, you know, COAs, they do mean something, I guess, but they don't mean all that much. But anyway, I had a big, huge stack of COAs. I never sent the COA to anybody, and nobody cared. They didn't even want it. And nobody asked for it. Nobody cared. They just wanted the doll. And that's what I sent them when they bought it. And I had this big, ginormous stack of COAs. And because, you know, a lot of them got donated to nursing homes. Don't even know what a COA is, much less care about it. And so anyway, I thought, maybe I can do something with these COAs. Maybe somebody who got a second wants a COA for their doll. Maybe I could sell them for, I don't know, $10. And so I put them up online, and I listed the ones I had and how many I had of them. And you wouldn't believe the response. People wanted them COAs. They were flying out the door left and right. People were buying them and buying them and buying them. And to this day, I still have repeat customers that are still buying COAs. But I don't have that many left yet. I probably maybe have 50 left. I don't even know if I have that many. Maybe 35. But I had hundreds of them. I had multiples of every doll that they had in production at that time. Okay, he is painted. That's him painted. See how quick and easy that is? I'm going to keep out this really clean sponge in case when I'm looking him over, I see something that needs to be pounced. I already know what that is. I'm not going to check it. That is my bank balance. I get a text message every morning a little bit after 9 o'clock that tells me my bank balance. So that's what that was. Okay, now we're going to work on his lips and his scratch first. And then we'll tip his nails. Okay, when you're making a baby scratch, I'm going to do the scratch first just in case my hand goes crooked and I touch his lips or something. I don't want to, you know, mess it up. We want to make sure his face is good and dry. There are a couple steps to making a scratch. First, you have to decide, where would a baby scratch themselves on? They could literally scratch themselves anywhere. But most of the time, they're going to scratch themselves on their cheek. And it's either going to be, you know, if their hand came up, it's either going to be this way or this way. So it would be this way or this way. So you have to pick. Hardly ever do they scratch themselves straight up or straight across. It would be at a slant. So you have to pick, which cheek do I want it on? Where do I want it placed? Which way do I want it to go? It's just a preference. You just pick. It doesn't really matter. You just pick one. And then I have this stuff in this little container. I don't even know if there's enough left in here to do a baby scratch or if it's still any good. I'm going to mix it around with a toothpick first to see, and to mix it with the thick medium. I use thick medium for this because we want the scratch to stand. Oh yeah, there's plenty still in here and it's plenty soft. But there's a hair in it. That's a piece of polyfill actually. We want it to stick up from the baby's face because, well, it's a scratch. It's not just a color on their skin. A scratch is something you can feel as well as see. I'm going to show you Gabriel. Did I put a scratch on Gabriel? I can't remember. No, I did not. Where's a baby with a scratch? Do any of these? Oh, here's Ashley. Ashley has a scratch. I can feel it when I touch it, and you can see it readily on her cheek. She has a baby scratch. But now, you get to pick where you want it, how long you want it, if it's going to be straight or curved or slanted this way or slanted that way. You pick all that. That's up to you. So we're going to use 2 different kinds of paint to make this scratch. One is going to be this paint that I use on the lips and nails. And the other is going to be this paint that I mixed up in here. Because while we want it to be a certain color, we don't want to put all thick medium or it'd just be so bumpy, it would just be too bumpy. So we're going to do part of it with this flatter paint and part of it with this thicker paint. So, and I'm going to use my tiny little brush here. Just any tiny little brush like this will work. I was going to show you the brushes that come in that set that I was telling you about. I have a bunch of them up here. They just come in all different shapes and sizes. And this fuzzy looking thing is not one of them. This is one. This is one. Look how tiny this brush is. That one would do the same thing. There's these purple ones don't count either. This is one. They just come in. There's 15 different brushes in this set. And they come in all different shapes and sizes. So if you don't have a brush like this, don't worry. This little set I recommended to you has a tiny little brush like this. This is the one I used to use before I got this brush. This brush just cleans up so good. That's why I like it. It has a different kind of bristles in it. That's all the only real difference in them. And so anyway, we're going to get started. Of course, the first thing you're going to do is pick your placement of your scratch. And like I said, it can be anywhere you want. I've put them up here close to the nose before. I've put them on the forehead, on the cheek, on the chin. You can just put it anywhere. It's really, really a preference. So I'm just going to prop his head up a little bit with some limbs here so I don't have to try to keep it from rolling around while I'm making a scratch. There we go. That's good. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some of this paint on it. Now, if you notice ever a scratch, if you've gotten like your dog scratched you or your cat, you'll notice that you don't just have a scratch. You have some red skin around the scratch. The surrounding skin is a little bit inflamed, so it turns a little bit red. So we're going to use some of this smoother paint, and it's very translucent. This paint, if you put it on thin, is very light, just like you saw on the lips. We're going to put a little bitty tiny bit on the face that's kind of flat and just red to be underneath the scratch. So we're going to make it a little bit fatter than we want our scratch to be. So we're just going to get a tiny bit on our brush. Once again, you want an amount you can't even hardly see. You can't even see any paint on that brush. It just looks like it's slightly wet at the tip. That's all. So, and if you get too much, you need to have like a swab or a sponge ready to take off what you don't want. Because once it starts to dry, I think it's just going to be there. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to make a little swipe down his face that's going to be a little bit wider than our scratch. And then I'm going to dab it a little bit with this with this swab. And what we have is just a little red streak on his face. Now we want every layer to be dry. And that layer was so thin, it is dry. You don't have to worry about that. So now, and you don't have to go back and rinse your brush off between these layers. We're going to be rotating this one and this one. We're just going to rotate them back and forth. So now we're going to take some of this thick medium right here, and we're just going to get some on our brush. We want there to be some on the brush this time. We want to be able to see it, but not have big globs or anything. We're going to put a dotted line, kind of like if you were, I don't know, a perforated line that you can tear on. It's only got holes every so often, you know. Well, we're just going to put a dotted line. Now, our dots are going to be very close, but hopefully not really touching that much. They're going to be a little bit smaller, small, little tiny dots, but we're not going to put a solid line. We're going to make it a dotted line. And that's because if you ever look at your scratch, maybe the moment you get it, it looks solid. But as it starts to scab over and you get those little bumps, they look almost like a dotted line. So that's what we're going to do on his face. I'm just going to put little tiny dots on his face, and then I'll show them to you. They don't have to be perfectly straight. They don't have to be, I'm using this one, perfectly uniform in size or anything like that. This is not a perfect thing. It's a scratch, and scratches aren't planned out and perfect. They're just the way that they are. So it sort of looks like this. I don't know if you can see that it's dotted. It may look like a solid line to you. I don't know. But now I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to apply it to that to get it as dry as I can. It won't be completely dry, but it'll be dry enough to apply another coat of paint. It takes like a minute, 1 minute. And it gets rather hot too. And you notice I put it on kind of thick. It's not just real runny and thin. It's getting much lighter as it's drying too. That's enough. You can feel that the vinyl's getting very, very warm. Nothing like the oven, of course, but it does feel hot to the touch. And so we have to not keep it on there too long or we could burn our doll. Okay, so we've got 1 coat of this. It's not enough to really feel yet. I didn't put it on that thick. So now we're going to move to this one. And we're going to get a little bit of this one. And we're going to start putting it on there because we do want more color, but we don't want all that much depth to it. We just want it slightly feel it. So we're going to put this one on in dotted little dots too. See, his face starts to cool very quickly because it's not a deep down kind of hot like the oven just totally heats the entire vinyl inside and out and all the way through. This is only heating the surface. So, okay, here we go. We're going to put a little bit of this on there now. And it doesn't have to be right on top of the other dots. It can be, or it can just be separate. It doesn't matter. If you don't replenish your brush, you're going to end up with a darker scratch at the top and lighter at the bottom because we always tend to start at the top and go down. Okay, so now it's 2 layers. It looks like that. Now you can make them longer or on a different spot on the face. It's all up to you. So now we're going to do that again. We're going to heat him up again because we need to get that dry again. drier. It won't be completely dry. And it is getting lighter as it heats up and starts to dry. So you can sort of gauge the color that way. It won't be your final color until it's actually baked. That one dries a lot faster than the thicker one. It starts to get not shiny looking anymore, and it starts to get duller in color, and you know it's dry enough then. Okay, so we're going to get some more of this bumpy one, and we're going to put it on there. We're going to always end up with the bumpy on top because we want to feel it. This may be our last coat. I don't know. If we need another coat, we'll probably just put another coat of the bumpy. We want it to... It's sticky feeling right now. You don't want to really be touching it that much. You could actually put your fingerprint right down the doll by doing that. So that's a little too much on the brush. Let me get a little bit of it off. Now we're going to put bigger dots. These are going to be a little bit further apart and bigger because this is going to be the coat, I think, that's going to be the last coat. I think this will be enough. And we want it to be bumpy when we touch it. So we're going to be putting this on a little bit thicker because we want it to stand up a little bit. And you can almost see that it stands up from the skin. I don't know if you can really tell on camera, but it looks like it to me. And if this is your last coat, you don't really have to dry it. You can just leave it like that. Now that's a small scratch. You can make them longer. You can make them in a different spot. It just doesn't matter. You just pick a place and just put it there. And so we're going to just set him down for a minute. And while that's drying a little bit, and it won't take it all that long, I'm going to rinse this bumpy stuff off of my brush so that I can use it in a minute to do his lips. We're not going to do his nails because we are going to tip them. And to tip the nails, you're going to need to have your tipping paint, which I mixed up way long time ago. All I did is put some thinning medium in a jar. And the amount of thinning medium you put is about the amount you're going to mix. And then you're just going to add color to it until it's sort of thick. Now this is not so thick that it won't run out of the jar if you turn the jar sideways, but it is thick enough that it will stick to the toothpick. See how it sticks? And so you need to mix it up because you'll be able to see that there's oily residue on the top of the paint. And you want to mix it real good where you don't see that oil anymore. But now you can't use this toothpick to put it on. There's way too much on it. So we're going to throw it out and get another toothpick. They're a penny a dozen or something. Okay, so we're going to I'm going to do a foot first. And we're just going to barely get some on the tip of our toothpick here. And if you stay right on the edge of the nail, you can usually, see I just got a tiny little bit. If it's not enough, you can get a little more. But you don't want to get too much. Just a tiny, 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 tiny drop on there. If you stay right on the edge of the nail, you can usually just swipe it right across, and it's not that hard. Of course, you have to have your toothpick at the right angle where the paint is actually on it. It's hard for me because my hands are so shaky. I'm having to rest part of my hand on the toothpick, or that's just got too much frayed area on it. I got some on the toe. I'm just going to wipe that part off, and then I'll show it to you. Mine are not perfect by any means. Please don't judge me harshly. I have shaky hands. But that's a tip toe. I don't know if you can see it. It's the big toe. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the next toe. Mine are nowhere near perfect. People that are young and don't have shaky hands can certainly do a better job than me. I am not good at this. I will tell you right up front, I don't tip most of the nails because I'm no good at it. And if any of the nails are very crooked or bent, or I just don't do them because it's better not to do them than to do a sloppy job. Now they're going to look a little better when you get the glue on there. They will look, but don't settle for something ugly because you think, well, it'll look better. You know, if it's slightly a little bit rough looking, it's gonna cover up with the glue. But this is basically what a tipped foot looks like. I don't know if you can see that well or not. Maybe you can see the hand better, but be very mindful of how you lay it down. You don't want any of the toes to touch your table because it will take the tip off. Okay, so we're going to do this one now. I usually find toes a little bit easier than fingers, except if the toes are really, really bent. And because the nails are a little bit, I don't know, flatter, you can actually put the foot against the table to help steady it. The hand is a little bit harder. You almost have to hold it up in the air to do it. So it's a little bit harder. And if you're having trouble doing this, I just want to say practice makes perfect. You get better at it the more you do it. You just figure it out. There's just a certain angle that you want to hold your toothpick at for it to smoothly glide across the nail. And just the tiniest little drop is enough. You'd be surprised how little you use. I mixed about this much. I mean, a tiny bit. The least I could possibly mix and still mix up a paint color in a cap like that, and I used it on probably $10 or $15 before it got too shallow for me to get any on my toothpick. And then I said, well, I'm going to use it, so I'm going to just put it in a jar and I'll mix up more this time. But I was trying. At that time, I was just trying to mix up enough for that $1, and it was so much I just couldn't make myself throw it away. I said, that'll tip more and more and more dolls. I just need to save it. So I did. Okay, we have to be very careful with this hand because we're going to try to put a sponge back in it without getting the tip. So you have to, it's harder for these fingers are pointing every different way, and you have to turn the hand, and you almost have to hold it up in the air. Sometimes I can prop it on the table and it'll work, but sometimes you can't. Like, see this finger? I'm gonna have to hold it up in the air like this. So I have to kind of prop my fingers against the fingers of the hand to keep it from shaking. And it makes it harder to tip the nails. But if you don't have shaky fingers, you should be able to do this. My first go was actually remarkably good for the first time. It's very tedious little tiny work, and I thought, it's going to be so difficult. And while I did find it difficult, it wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought. It was much easier than I thought, and I thought, whoa, maybe I can do this. But on that particular day, I wasn't having shaky hands, so maybe that had something to do with it, that, you know, certain times of the day when you're not so super tired or something, your hands don't shake as much. Well, if you have shaky hands, you already know this. But if you're nervous or you're tired or you've used your hands a lot and they're stressed, like when I'm rooting, my hands get terrible. I have to stop. I can't work on dolls because my hands are too shaky, and I can't root because my hands are cramping. It's just horrible to get old. I remember hearing old people talking about stuff, and I just could not relate. I can now. When we get there, we understand. There's this lady, she's hilarious. She started this thing on Facebook. It's called the We Do Not Care Club. And I love her post. She goes, we are putting the world on notice that we simply do not care anymore. And she starts talking about things she don't care about, that, you know, older people, especially women, no longer care about, you know, like wearing makeup and, you know, stuff like that. But she puts a funny twist on it. It's really fun to watch. Oh, and I wanted to tell you all this. I ordered some hair from Dolls by Sandy, and I was noticing on their website, now that's got his nails, they're all done. I was noticing on their website that they had this thing called a grab bag. It's like a surprise bag. You don't get to pick what's in it, they just send you stuff. And I thought, well, it's $1, you know, surely it'll be worth $1. So I put one in my cart, and I bought it, and it came. And it was the cutest thing. It was a baby nightgown, and I looked that baby nightgown up, and it's like $3 or something like that. It was blue. They have them in blue and pink, and it's so adorable. And with it, they gave me this little super pointy paintbrush, tiny, tiny little paintbrush about that big. But it has a super pointy tip on it. I don't know what it's for. Maybe it's for creasing. I don't know. And then they also gave me a baby hair bow. And it was so cute, too. It was like a little headband with a bow on it. Okay, I'm going to paint his lips one more time now. So they'll just be slightly darker. Well, where did I put my lip stuff? There it is. And I thought, wow, I'm going to get a grab bag every time I order something from them now, as long as they have them. It's probably things that don't sell well. I think those nightgowns are on clearance, but it's cute. I'll put it on a doll. And it's newborn size, so it'll fit most any of your Reborn dolls. And it's really, really cute. It's a blue one, which could be for a girl too, I think. It's a very nice color of blue, and I just liked it. All I can say is if you buy anything from Dolls by Sandy, don't forget to put a grab bag in your cart. It's only $1, and you get way more than $1 worth of stuff. I bet that hair bow was $1 by itself. They a lot of times send some kind of little free gift with your stuff, but you don't get to know what it is. And it's been paintbrushes before, but they're very cheap paintbrushes. I can tell you that. They don't last long, but free is free, and you can use them until they don't last anymore. I liked the paintbrushes. It's just that they're so cheaply made that after you use them a few times, they just fall apart. They're very, very cheaply made. And I think they're disposable. I'm not sure, but they seem as cheap as a disposable paintbrush to me. And so I just used it several times, and it fell apart, and I threw it away, and I wasn't upset about it because I got it for free. They sent 2 of them one time, and one time they sent 1. And this one's different. This one doesn't have bristles. It has a pointy, almost looks like, I can feel it until it's not felt or anything, but it almost looks like it's got a clothy looking little felty tip on it. But it's not that. It seems like nylon bristles, but they're so tightly squeezed together that they just look like a bundle. I don't know how to describe it. Very, very pointy. And I imagine it's for very tight spaces, like, there we go. Now Logan has very, very pretty lips. Look at those pretty lips. I like my babies to have pretty lips. That's why I'm picky about them. See, we started out with super thin paint that we couldn't even see, and we've been adding thin coats the whole time, and look how nice his lips look. Yes, I got a little thicker, but not much thicker. Just tiny, tiny bit thicker. Here's an example. Here's Alma. She's had 2 coats on her lips, and they look pretty good already. She's the one I'm going to be working on when I finish this doll because, well, I already started on her. So he is mostly finished now. We're going to get him back in the oven and get him his last bake. And when we come back, we'll be unstuffing his head, putting his eyes in, putting his magnet in, and getting him ready to get his hair. I like to do all the inside work on the inside of the head before I start the hair, because that hair is just a booger, let me tell you. And the more you can get done to the doll first, the more you're not going to have to put the eyes in. You have to mash the head a whole lot. You got to get these eye sockets way down here by this hole, the inside of the eye socket, way down here by this hole. And so you have to mash it real hard, and it won't hurt your doll. Not if it's properly painted and cured in the oven. It won't hurt it at all. Okay, so we're going to get him back in anyway right now and get him his bake. And like I said, when we come back, we'll be ready to start doing some other things to him that's like finishing touches or something. I guess that's what you can call them, finishing touches. This was finishing touches, really. Tipping the nails, repainting the lips, putting on a baby scratch. By the time he comes out, you'll be able to feel that baby scratch. But anyway, his last steps, I guess you call it that, last steps before hair. We'll be putting some glue on the rims and on his nails. We'll be doing a lot of things. But anyway, we're going to get him done first, and then we'll be back to do that. So please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and happy reborning.